never thought I'd be the kind of man who rewrites a will out of spite. I was raised differently. Duty, discipline, dignity. I'm a retired Air Force mechanic. 72, widower, father of one. And until last year, I believed my legacy was simple. Leave what I have to my son. Because that's what fathers do. That was before I learned who my son really was. Before I heard him laugh at me, in a voice he thought I'd never hear. My name is George. I've lived in the same modest brick house for over 40 years. Same porch swing Maggie and I picked out in '87. Same cracked driveway I used to patch every spring. When Maggie passed, the silence nearly killed me. She was the melody. I was the rhythm. Without her, the beat kept going, but the music was gone. Eric, our son, visited more often after she died. He brought flowers, groceries, a smile that seemed too rehearsed. I was grateful. I told myself I raised a good man. He always had big dreams, finance, real estate, passive income, whatever that meant. He lived in the city, nice car, white teeth, hands that never had to scrape oil from under fingernails. When he came around, he complimented my lawn, my framed medals. He'd say, "You and Mom built something solid, Dad. That's rare. That's legacy." I'd nod, feel proud, tell myself I did okay. Last Christmas, he brought his wife. Lila, perfect hair, cold smile. She looked around my home like it was a museum of irrelevance. Still, I smiled. I made pot roast, told the old stories. Eric laughed in the right places. When they left, I sat in Maggie's chair, looked at the tree and whispered, "We did good, didn't we?" But something felt off, like applause in an empty theater. A few weeks later, Eric called. "Dad, have you thought about final plans? We'll stuff." I told him everything was taken care of, that Maggie and I made arrangements years ago. He paused, then said, "That's smart. A lot of people forget. I just want to make sure everything's protected. For the family." I thanked him for caring, and I believed him. Spring came slowly that year. I spent most mornings on the porch. Coffee, newspaper. Same routine Maggie and I had for decades. One morning, Eric showed up unannounced. No flowers this time, no groceries. Just a folder in his hand and that too bright smile. "Hey, Dad, thought I'd drop by." He sat across from me, folder on his lap like a gift he couldn't wait to open. We chatted. Weather, work, memories. Then he cleared his throat. "So, listen, Lila and I have been looking at properties. There's this place outside the city. Big yard, great schools. It could be a real legacy." I raised an eyebrow. "And?" "Well, with the right planning, you could help us get started. Not now, but down the road." I smiled, didn't say a word, just nodded like I was hearing the weather report. He left the folder, said, "Just some ideas, no pressure." That night I opened it. Inside, printouts of luxury homes. A note. "Investment-grade real estate opportunity." A handwritten line. "You always wanted to help. This could change everything for us." I closed the folder. Put it on the shelf behind Maggie's photo. Didn't touch it again. Weeks passed. Eric stopped calling as often. Then I got a text. "Busy season. We'll check in soon. Love ya." It felt like a brush-off. But I was used to silence. Until one Sunday afternoon. I had my friend Henry over. Navy man, retired, opinionated as ever. He helped me install a new fire alarm system with a voice memo feature. "A fancy gadget for an old man," he said. "You talk to it, it talks back. You can record notes, reminders. Anything. I didn't care much, but Henry insisted, said it was safer. We tested it, set it to record in the hallway by the coat rack. Then we forgot about it. A week later, I was scrolling through the settings. Clicked on Last Recording. What I heard changed everything. Eric's voice. Clear, sharp, mocking. Dad's practically a statue. He doesn't need that place. We'll spruce it up, flip it if we have to. The old man won't even know what hit him. Then Lila's laugh. Just keep him smiling. Play the good son. Once it's ours, we can finally do something real with it. I froze. I listened again. Then I sat in silence, staring at the wall. They didn't just want the house. They wanted to erase me. Nicely, politely, quietly. And I'd almost let them. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in Maggie's chair, hands clenched around a cup of cold tea, listening to that recording over and over until I could quote every smug word by heart. Eric's voice used to make me proud. Now it made my stomach turn. I wasn't angry, not in the way people expect. I was disappointed, and that's worse, because anger fades. But disappointment, it lingers. I spent the next morning digging through papers, tax records, house deeds, and the will, still filed neatly in the family drawer. It was simple, really. Everything to Eric. Because who else? Maggie and I never had other children. My sister had passed years ago. No nieces, no nephews close enough to matter. We believed in family, even when it didn't believe in us. I stared at that sentence. All assets, possessions, and property to my son, Eric Thomas Clay. It felt wrong now. Not just unfair, dangerous. He didn't deserve it. He didn't respect it. He didn't even see me anymore. Just my roof and my land and my bank account. I called my lawyer the next day, a woman named Judith, sharp as a nail, calm as ice. I told her I needed to rewrite my will. Any reason in particular? She asked. I paused, then said, I've realized I want my life's work to go to someone who values it, not someone who expects it. She nodded once. I can help you with that. We drafted a new version. Clean, clear, final. Eric, removed. Instead, I left the house to Henry's daughter, a single mom who helped me shovel snow last winter without asking. I left some money to the VA, some to the church where Maggie used to sing, and one small account to Caleb, a young man I mentored once who still sends me postcards from college. Then I wrote a letter, not to send, to leave behind, to Eric. Son, I heard what you said, not the version you practiced for me, the real one. I gave you everything I had, hoping you'd grow into the kind of man who values people over property. But I see now, I gave you too much and demanded too little. This house was built with calloused hands, long nights, and quiet love. It's not an investment. It's a life. And I won't let it be flipped like a broken chair on Craigslist. I hope one day you understand why I did this. And if not, that's okay. You made your choice. Now I've made mine. I sealed the envelope, put it in the new folder, filed it under Legacy. And I felt something I hadn't in months. Peace. I didn't tell Eric. I didn't confront him. Didn't scream. Didn't play him the recording. Because silence, when it's deliberate, it speaks louder than any accusation. The next time he visited, he brought wine. Thought we could have a little toast, he said. To what? I asked. He grinned. To the future. I smiled back. Let's. We clinked glasses. He drank deeply. I sipped once, then set the glass down. He looked around the room. You ever think about selling this place, Dad? Just imagine what you could do with that money. I leaned back in my chair. Imagine what you could do with a soul. He blinked, laughed, unsure. Getting philosophical in your old age? Something like that. He left that evening with a half-hearted hug, said, "Love ya," without looking me in the eyes. I nodded. "Take care." And I meant it. But not in the way he thought. Weeks passed. I planted tomatoes, watched birds. Sent Caleb a care package, coffee, socks, and one of Maggie's old recipe cards. He wrote back, "I read the recipe even though I can't cook. I miss you." I smiled. Missed him too. One evening, Henry and I sat on the porch. He lit a cigar. I passed. "You ever tell him?" he asked. "Nope." He nodded slowly. "Probably for the best. Let him believe what he wants." I shrugged. "He'll find out eventually." Henry exhaled smoke toward the sky. "Yeah, but by then, you'll be long gone, and finally in peace." I didn't like talking about death, but I wasn't afraid of it either. Maggie once said, "If we live right, the end won't scare us." She was right, as always. Then, one Thursday afternoon, I got a call. Not from Eric, from Lila. "Hi, George. Eric's been talking to a realtor. He says you're thinking about selling." I paused. "Number. That's news to me." Silence. Then she mumbled, "Oh, well, I guess he misunderstood." I didn't correct her, didn't scold, just said, "Tell him I said hi." I hung up and laughed, a real, deep laugh, because it was finally clear he thought he already owned me, but I'd never belonged to anyone. Summer came early that year. The porch flowers bloomed brighter than I remembered. Maybe Maggie was still keeping an eye on them somehow. I spent more time with Henry. We watched baseball, played slow games of chess, talked about everything and nothing. He never asked about Eric again, and I never offered. One day I got a letter in the mail. Not a bill, not junk. It was from the local high school. The principal wrote, "Your name came up in a class discussion. One of our students said, 'Mr. Clay told me once that mistakes don't define you. How you fix them does. Would you consider speaking to our graduating class?' I hadn't stepped inside that school in over 20 years, but I said yes. On the day of the speech, I wore my old dress shoes. Polished them. Maggie would have teased me. The auditorium was full. Parents, students, teachers I barely recognized. I stepped up to the mic, cleared my throat, and told them about silence. I want to talk about what happens when you stop listening to noise and start listening to truth, especially your own. I didn't mention Eric, didn't mention betrayal, but I spoke of value and how not everyone who claps for you wants you to succeed. When I was done, no one stood. No wild cheers. Just a long, still moment. Then applause. Soft, steady, real. Afterward, a girl approached me. Maybe 17. Shy eyes, tightly held notebook. She said, "My dad left last year, but something you said made it feel like I'm still worth something." I didn't say anything clever, just placed a hand on her shoulder. Sometimes that's enough. That night I sat on the porch, alone, air warm, sky clear, and for the first time in a while, I didn't feel angry or sad or even disappointed. I felt whole. Eric hadn't called in weeks. I didn't expect him to. People don't call what they think they already own. They only check in when it's time to collect. But I wasn't a possession. Not anymore. Not ever again. Fall rolled in with gold leaves and crisp mornings. I raked the yard slower than I used to. Henry joked I was milking the season. One morning, while dragging the bin out to the curb, I saw a boy riding past on a rusted bike. He stopped, pointed at the little wooden birdhouse I'd nailed up years ago. "Did you make that?" he asked. I did. "It's cool." Then he pedaled off like nothing happened. I stood there a moment longer, smiling like an idiot. That weekend I bought supplies, built 2 more birdhouses, painted them, one red, one blue. I put a small sign out front. "Take one if you want. Leave a story if you can." By Tuesday, both were gone. In their place, a napkin with a crayon drawing of a bird, and a note in blocky handwriting. "My mom said you remind her of her dad. He died, but she smiled today. Thanks." I sat down on the porch steps and wept quietly. Not because I was sad, but because I felt useful again. Not for my bank account, not for my name, but for my presence. A few days later, I ran into Henry's daughter, Lisa. She'd just finished a night shift at the hospital. I asked how she was. "Tired," she said, "but grateful. Some of the patients, they don't have anyone. Sometimes I just hold their hand until they go." She smiled. "I remember your wife. She used to sing while planting tulips. I think about that when I walk past your yard." That night, I added a clause to the will. Lisa would get the car, not because she needed it, but because she deserved something that ran well and kept going. Just like her. Eric finally called a week later. "Hey, Dad, just checking in. You doing okay?" I kept it brief. "I'm doing just fine." "Great. Listen, Lila and I were wondering, are you still planning to keep the house? We thought maybe a retirement place might be better. Something smaller, you know?" I let silence stretch, then answered, "I've already downsized." He chuckled, not catching it. "Good to hear. We'll swing by soon." No rush. I hung up, felt lighter. He still didn't know, and I didn't need him to. Winter came early. The first snow fell soft and silent, blanketing the yard like forgiveness. I turned 73 the week before Christmas. Caleb called. Lisa brought soup. Henry sent a card that just said, "Still here, you stubborn bastard." Eric didn't call. I didn't expect him to. Then, in January, I got sick. Not terribly, just enough to slow me down. Lisa came by, checked on me. Caleb sent tea from Oregon. Even Henry dropped off firewood. But Eric, nothing. And I realized something. It wasn't that he'd betrayed me. It's that he'd never been there at all. Not really. Just a shadow of what a son should have been. And I had been afraid to admit that. But now the fear was gone. In February, I called Judith. Said I wanted the will officially certified and sealed. "Want me to send a copy to your son?" she asked. I paused. "Number. Let him be surprised." In April, I went into the hospital for a minor procedure. Nothing major, just observation. Lisa stayed the night. She brought a book and a blanket. We didn't talk much, but I never felt alone. Lying in that hospital bed, I thought about legacy. Not money, not houses, but how we make people feel, how we're remembered or forgotten. I didn't need statues, didn't need praise. I just wanted to leave clean footprints, not messes. When I got home, the first thing I did was sit on the porch, watched a squirrel steal a chunk of bread from the bird feeder, laughed out loud, felt good to be alive. Then, in June, I passed quietly in my sleep, just like Maggie. No drama, no fear, just stillness. What happened after, I only know from the papers, letters, and stories they shared. Eric received a call from Judith 2 days after the funeral. She invited him to her office. He came in wearing sunglasses and impatience. "I assume I'll need to sign something," he said. Judith handed him a sealed envelope. Inside, the letter I wrote him. "Eric, you thought you knew me. You thought you could play nice, wait patiently, and collect. But I saw you. I heard you. And I chose differently. You don't inherit from someone you only pretended to love. You don't earn legacy with manipulation. I leave you with something more valuable than money. The truth about yourself. Do with it what you will." Dad. He didn't cry, didn't argue. Just sat there, quiet, small. Then Judith handed him the official documents. Assets to Lisa. Property divided among those who showed up. Caleb's scholarship. The birdhouse fund for the local school. The bench by the lake with Maggie's name on it. Nothing for Eric, except the letter. Lisa visited the house a week later. She didn't throw a party, didn't change the curtains. She sat on the porch, sipped tea, and smiled at the sky. Caleb framed the recipe card, keeps it in his kitchen. And on the grave, someone carved my favorite line. "You're not remembered for what you leave. You're remembered for who you were while you stayed."